got some squirrels here today. This is Lunch Therapy, your place to chill, your place to take a breather, be in the moment. This show is crafted in large part by its listeners, or its viewers. It's also crafted by a skeleton, some dogs, a lot of cats, and some small rodents like the one behind me. This is Wally. He's a squirrel. Today is Interview Friday. Yes. And we have a really fun guest for you today. His name is Stephen Engle, and he's coming to us all the way from Hong Kong. Yes, Hong Kong. He is a correspondent for Bloomberg Television, and we've gotten the permission of Bloomberg to have him on our show, so feel free to chat along. He may even answer your questions in the chat room. It's 3 a.m. in Hong Kong, so we'll be lucky if we have him here in the chat room as well. I'm looking forward to this because Stephen is someone that I went to elementary school with. Yeah, and we're going to really delve into how a kid from Woodway, Washington, ended up being a major news correspondent in China, Hong Kong, Singapore, Taipei, and Tokyo. So let's get on with this. This is the show called Lunch Therapy. All right. So this is what we do here. We breathe. This is what we do at the top of the show. So we're going to do that right now. Breathing is an essential part of life. It's an essential part of the show. So let's get into this thing. We're going to take in a deep breath. Why do we take in a deep breath? Well, because breathing helps us get calm and relaxed. These 3 breaths send a message to your body that everything is okay. You can turn off the stress response. You can enjoy the day. So let's get into this thing. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. Looking ahead, on Tuesday, we are going to explore the Mandela Effect with the funny guy, comedian Guy Murray. So join us then, Tuesday at noon Pacific. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. Behind me is my cat, Charlie. This looks like a still photo, perhaps, but it is video. He is there for your inspiration, your relaxation, inspiration. Charlie. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. And let it go. All right, let's get on with this interview. But first, a hummingbird from Engel, viewer of the show. A participant in the show. He gives us some beautiful hummingbirds, often. So, let me tell you something about Stephen Engle. He is currently based in Hong Kong. He is an award-winning broadcast journalist with over 30 years of experience all across the Asia-Pacific region. He's currently an on-air correspondent for Bloomberg Television, and he won the Best Current Affairs Presenter Award at the Asian Television Awards in 2013. And he has been based in Beijing, Hong Kong, Singapore, Taipei, and Tokyo. Before coming to Bloomberg, he worked at CNBC and CNN. Highlights of his career include covering the visits to Asia by Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Donald Trump. He also interviewed Nobel Peace Laureates Aung San Suu Kyi and Kim Dae-jung, as well as many other political leaders, such as UN Secretary Ban Ki-moon, Tony Blair, and many others. But as I like to say on the show, and Howard likes it when I say that too, without further ado, congratulations, Howie, on your new agent. Yes. Without further ado, Interview Friday. The crowd is going wild. Stephen Engle. Oh my God. It's so great to have you here. We've been talking about this for some time now. And finally, we're here. And you're all the way from Hong Kong. You're in Hong Kong?
Yeah, I'm in Hong Kong right now. I'm up in Sai Kung, which is up in the New Territories, closer to the Chinese border, just out of the city, out of the concrete jungle, in the real jungle up here. So it reminds me of Seattle a little bit, you know.
What? How does it remind you of Seattle?
Humid.
How is that possible? Because of humidity?
Because they get mountains, water, hiking, cobras. Okay, no, wait a minute. Seattle doesn't have cobras, garter snakes, but there are cobras and redneck keelbacks and bamboo pit vipers out in the woods behind us. But that's what the dog's for, right?
Yeah. So you said that there's
smells them.
There's like a typhoon coming or something, or some kind of weather event.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a whimper of a typhoon. It's called T1, which is the lowest level of typhoons. So it's, if the trees start blustering behind me, you know, we don't need to batten down the hatches, but it's going to get a little. I'm not going to be the only one blowing hot air. How's that?
Look, I look like I'm where you are. I got a window. Same thing. It's like I'm in the other room.
There you go. You're just next door in Japan there. It looks like
right,
a shoji screen, I think.
That's right. But, you know, hopefully typhoon won't come. It's been pretty sunny so far. Okay, so we met through Facebook, but possibly we met when we were very, very tiny children going to Sherwood Elementary.
Yeah, I think we were Sherwood Elementary, Woodway, Washington, representing here. Yeah, I was in the same class as your brother. We probably played on the same baseball teams. I wasn't very good. I wanted to be good, which made it a very tragic story. I so wanted to be
Did you?
But I
wasn't. Want to be a great baseball player? None of us were that great at baseball. Yeah. It wasn't really the Sherwood thing.
Well, we were 6 or 12 or whatever.
What grade were you there? What grades were you there?
From kindergarten up to 6th grade. And then I went to my parents. You know, there was a bunch of failed school levies and things like that back in the 70s. So my mom, the English teacher, you know, she got me out of Sherwood, you know, the dark nastiness inner hood of Sherwood Elementary in Woodway, Washington.
Such a difficult.
Oh, it's the mean streets of Woodway, Washington. My times there,
I am still scarred. Mr. Pinkerton,
I always say it's like
the crap that he put me through.
Mr. Pinkerton still scars the Engel family, because my brother Brian, who is 2 years older than I, was a menace to Mr. Pinkerton. I mean, it's like Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Who was the principal there in Ferris Bueller?
Hand. Mr. Hand.
Mr. Hand.
The great Ray
no,
Walston.
Mr. Hand wasn't the principal.
Oh, he wasn't. Oh, yeah, he was the teacher.
Who
was the principal?
The teacher, yeah. But my brother kind of got great joy out of getting spanked by Mr. Pinkerton. Back in the days where you could get spanked.
They did spank you there, didn't they?
Corporal punishment, yeah. So
they said though, they always said that there was a stick with holes in it, and that when somebody hits you with a stick with holes in it, it hurts really bad, like a lot worse than a regular stick. But that was, I think, just made up. We'll have to ask your brother.
My mom had a wooden. I don't know what they use it for. It's called a butter paddle or something. It has ridges like corrugated, and that was the nuclear deterrent in our household. It just sat there in the drawer if we ever acted up. And those are the days you could hit your kids.
Yeah. What did your
I sound nostalgic.
I know. Those are the great days when you could be hit by your parents. What did your parents do?
My dad was a longtime mariner. He was in World War II. He was a captain of 2 different Coast Guard / Navy ships. One was a aviation fuel tanker. He was 21 years old, and he was captain of the ship back in the South Pacific, around what is now Papua New Guinea, so Dutch East Indies, and then he was also on a merchant ship, or a freighter, I guess. Yeah. So he kind of followed the advancing army up the island chain on the southern route to eventually the Philippines. And then he went on, spent, I think, 40-something years at shipbuilding companies. So he built, Dangerous Catch, that show?
Yeah.
The fishing show in Alaska. Mm-hmm. So some of the boats that were in that, my dad probably sold, or at least the company sold it. So he was head of sales of Alaskan crab boats for a long time. I was kind of a quiet kid back in Sherwood. I mean, there were a lot of cooler kids back there. There was some bullying going on, but this is lunch therapy, and I'm not going to get into that.
Hey, it's therapy. It's therapy. So if you need to work something out, feel free.
Well, you might have a global exclusive here when I talk out my feelings, because I'm usually trying to get into the inner psyches of my guests, not
right. But
myself.
You're the guest now. Do you think? Your mom. You said your mom. She was a teacher.
Well, my mom's kind of the rock of the family, really. Not that my dad wasn't, but my dad was just a great guy. My dad and I were just best friends. Used to go out sailing on Puget Sound all the time, just the two of us. A few beers were consumed on those father-son moments. But my mom, she had multiple careers. She was in the State Department back in Italy in the early 1950s, so post-war Italy. She was a photographer. She was, she's a genealogist. She was an English teacher up at Edmonds Community College. All kinds of things. So she's still representing in Woodway. She still lives there in the family home. 93 years old.
Wow, that's great. My parents are still there too.
Having lived in Asia now for 31 years, I brought a number of my friends from Asia back home to visit me and the like, and they go to Woodway and they go, oh my God, this is the fountain of youth. This is longevity. The Chinese love anything to do to find the elixir of youth. And, our neighbor is 90 something years old. The woman who lived kitty corner from us, abutted our backyard, boarded horses until she was 104 years old. Everyone around us are not octogenarians. They're nanogenarians, whatever it's called. I mean, they're 90 plus.
Yeah.
It's in the water or in the trees or something. It's amazing.
Their skin is
what
really
do I
nice
do?
Too.
I leave that place and I go to China.
I know.
I'm probably going to die next year or something.
You might. You do look young though. You're doing pretty darn well. So do you have fond memories of Sherwood Elementary? I mean, besides, the rough
you're going there. You're going there, aren't you? You're going there.
I am totally going there. I'm not budging.
I do have fond memories of Sherwood because, look, I had the greatest childhood. I mean, we grew up kind of isolated. Yeah. And when I moved to China when I was 24 years old, I wasn't ready for the world because I grew up in Woodway, Washington, which was just a great, great experience. And I love the fact that at 54, it's still part of my life. Yeah. But Sherwood Elementary. I mean, since I reconnected with you after watching your great interview with Matt Wright, the singer of Gashoffer, who is awesome. My next door neighbor as well.
He was your next door neighbor.
Matt was? Our properties. Yeah. I mean, I grew up with Matt and John Wright.
That's great.
Snowball fights or playing war out in the woods, and we played D&D in their red barn that straddled our properties or in the backyards. Yeah. So Matt was a good friend, and John and their great parents kids. And my parents were good friends. It was just a great place to grow up, and since we reconnected, all these names have just been flooding back into my head that I have not thought about since I was 11 years old. Rob Thal and your brother David Marshall and Ray Christensen, Ralph Scolacci, and Karen Mork. I saw that name come up on the comments, and Nate Bean, who I reconnected with. We were best friends, in his basement listening to Foreigner records and things like that. So all this just started coming back. So, my memory, if there's anything bad, I've blocked it out pretty much. But there was, I had a nickname, and you probably have heard what my nickname was.
No, what was your nickname? Do you want to say it? Or should we just
I've never
let the chat room guess?
revealed this, and I've never talked about it. I've never
lunch
talked
therapy.
about it, and it's gonna.
Lunch therapy.
No, I mean, I had how do I say? I had a disease that I didn't know about until I was 47.
Really?
So I have celiac disease, which is not a disease really. It is. It's an autoimmune disease that affects the villi in your intestines, and it's an autoimmune disease. So you eat gluten, malt, barley, wheat, and the like, and you just swell up, right? You can probably imagine if you're a kid, you have bowel issues.
Yeah.
And we didn't know back in the 60s and 70s what
not.
celiac disease
Of course not. Yeah.
So I had issues in that area, and I was called Stinky Steve.
No.
Okay?
Oh. Jeez, I can't believe I called you out on that.
Yeah, it's okay.
A lot of people, have these kind of things when they're kids. And actually, a lot of times these kind of experiences where you have something and you're like embarrassed about it or whatever, and maybe even people make fun of you, sometimes later on in life, it makes us stronger. And we're able to kind of look back on it with a certain kind of perspective where you're like, I understand why these kids were making fun of me or whatever. That was kind of their problem. And I actually am a stronger person for it today. Clearly,
I can remember way back when having a very strong sense of self.
Yeah.
And with a this sounds pretentious, but a sense of purpose. And I didn't really get why the kids teased me and this and that. And I remember asking my mom in tears one day, it's like, why don't they like me? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And my mom, who again was the rock of the family, gave me probably some of the best advice I've ever heard. I wish I could recall it or whatever, but she was always there to, I guess the family motto is you remember who you are and what you stand for, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Did it give me the purpose to go around the world and get as far away from Woodway, Washington? I don't think so. I think that was just my natural wanderlust, curiosity, and pursuit of a life unordinary. So it's okay. I mean, I have great memories.
Cool.
Of
we
Sherwood.
had Jonathan Spizzato on the show. I don't know if you knew Jonathan back in the day.
I think I played Dungeons and Dragons with him, but he was a good friend of Matt and was in Matt's band for a while before Gas Huffer. And I remember Jonathan.
Yeah, they had a
Spizzato,
band. Yeah, they played at Laferno's.
Yeah.
So he was talking about how he was kind of bullied when he was at Sherwood because he was Asian, and and how later on the people that had bullied him kind of apologized to him, but it was 20, 30 years later. But sometimes we have these kind of things that we have to deal with. I was kind of a fat kid. People used to make fun of me for being fat. And I was like, I also did not understand about food. Like, I didn't know why, it wasn't like I was eating a bunch of Twinkies or something like that. It was just, and so it sort of felt like it was out of my control. But I feel like it's made me a stronger person, now that I'm older, because I can deal with that kind of thing a little bit better, maybe, even though I'm...
Yeah, I think it also, you're more aware of other people's pain that they might be going through.
Yeah.
I mean, I got chunky for a while too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got chunky as anyone does, and then you lose weight, you gain weight, whatever. Some people never gain weight, the bastards.
Bastards. I agree.
I hate skinny people. I shame skinny people.
Those darn skinny people, they're ruining it for everybody. Well, the guys that I grew up, I don't know how fat I was. Maybe I wasn't that fat, but the guys I grew up with were totally skinny, like Tracy Thompson and Paul Barbano and Rob Thal. And those guys, they were great basketball players. They were really skinny. They never had any kind of problem with their weight. And then there was me. And so, I did feel a little bit like a, kind of an outsider. You left then and came back in Woodway High School. Is that right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I went to University Preparatory Academy.
Whoa.
University Prep, in the U District.
Wow.
It was a new school that started in 1978 or 76, I think. I started 7th grade there in 78. Ended up graduating there, but in my junior year, I thought I was missing out on American high school life because U Prep was pretty small. We had about 25, 26 kids in my class, and all great friends and this and that. Of course, I thought I was missing out on high school life. So, to my mom's credit, she's like, "Okay, if you want to go, fine. So I went back for my junior year to Woodway, but I mean, I was just, it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Woodway, this was the old Woodway High School.
Yeah.
It just wasn't for me. And I'm not denigrating the quality of education, but I didn't realize how,
What you were getting.
I mean, university level education I was getting at 7th and 8th and 9th grade at University Prep. Hence the name, University Prep. I
you
mean,
were prepping for the university.
I mean, University Prep was more difficult than anything in college, probably even more difficult than my job, as at Bloomberg.
Was it like
ways,
Lakeside, like that kind of level of school?
Yeah, it's comparable to Bush, Lakeside, and the schools. My dad went to Lakeside way back when as well.
Really?
So there was some, and my mom being, the English teacher, and she just had higher standards for education. And I mentioned back then we had levy failures, so they were defunding the schools. And
I know we were always out there picketing in Olympia. My mom and I would go down there and picket, try and get people to pass the levies. It was so ridiculous. Like, don't even ask, just pay for the schools because it's going to be important. It's important.
You think?
Yeah.
I mean, I could go on and on and on about the level of money that we put into educating our youth, whereas in Asia, they're plowing everything into education, but so I digress.
Yeah.
But where was I going with this again?
Okay, so you came back to Woodway, and you were like, "This is not for me."
I came back to Woodway, and I think this is again another Synops firing. I hadn't had U.S. history, so I went to. I had to go back to the 10th grade class, which was U.S. history. Mr. Plaisance, do you remember him?
Yeah,
I don't.
Of course.
I don't know if he's still alive. He probably is not with us anymore. But my goodness, what a terrible, terrible course. It was, that aha moment. It's like, U.S. history. Okay. First of all, his assigned readings were those John Jakes novels, those trashy westerns, things like that. In U.S. history, really? I mean, okay. Yeah. And then when he didn't feel like working, he would roll in remember those big TV sets on the caster rollers, and they would roll them in when the teacher doesn't want to do anything.
Yeah.
And he over the course of 3 different days, he played his favorite movie, U.S. history. Joel.
Oh my God.
Can you guess what movie he played?
Porky's.
That would have been more representative, even though it was. I don't think Porky's had been invented yet. But,
it maybe wasn't on VHS yet.
Yes,
it probably wasn't on VHS yet.
No,
maybe it was on
but
TV.
No, he played his favorite movie, which starred Sir Laurence Olivier.
Oh yes, Lawrence of Arabia.
Lawrence of Arabia in U.S. history.
All men too, by the way. There are no women in that movie.
And I thought, what am I doing? So I spent most of my time back at Woodway High School. Maybe I shouldn't reveal this, but you could get away with 10 absences per quarter, excused absences.
Yeah.
I skipped a lot. I went out in the woods and read my own things. I mean, I read the whole Dune series. I read Dashiell Hammett.
Out in the woods?
Out in the woods. Up in the woods behind Sherwood.
Yeah. Well, that was a good spot. The woods behind Sherwood.
Yeah.
We used to go up there.
And that's about as dorky as you can get.
That is pretty dorky, reading Dune up there in the woods behind Sherwood, but I think it's good. It's certainly made for a fine individual.
Yeah, I went back to University Prep. Yeah. I lost 35 pounds between that summer as well.
Wow.
I just, slimmed down and went back to University Prep, honor roll, boom, off to college. Wow. And it changed. Going to Woodway changed my life.
Spurred you
and I'm
on.
not denigrating Woodway.
Yeah.
I'm not casting aspersions to Woodway.
It just was not for you. And Mr. Plaisance was not.
It wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. But I met.
We won't even get into Mr. Dosser, who used to have the day where he played Who videos the entire time.
Well, I would have loved that. I've seen the Who about 3 times.
Have you?
I love the Who.
Love the Who too, but it's not exactly a high school class material.
No, I saw the Who at the Tacoma Dome when Pete Townsend was doing the windmill, and he put his hand right through the reverb bar, put it right through it. Whoa. And they had to haul him off the stage, and then Roger Daltrey came back on the stage and said, he's been taken to the hospital, and they finished the whole set, and Roger did the guitar work, and Yeah, true story.
Roger did the guitar work. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
That's cool.
So
That is a great story, by the way. Was there blood?
I was probably in the cheap seats. I was
Have
up
you
in
ever seen
the
that Pete
Tacoma
Townsend
Dome.
picture where he has his hands on his face and there's blood running down? Because he used to always, his hands would bleed anyway from the way he played the guitar.
I
We
love
digress.
the Who. We could talk about the
We
Who.
digress.
We digress. We are digressing in
It's
therapy.
that kind of show. It's that kind of show. Therapy's like that. You never know what's going to help, what's going to hurt. You never know. You got to just go there.
I revealed more than I should have already.
I like it. I like it. I'm really enjoying it. So where'd you go to college?
I went to Wazoo.
You went to Wazoo. Okay.
So I was thinking about this.
You're an interesting individual.
Again, I mentioned.
I'll tell you.
I don't know about that. I just keep on going further and further away from center, or I keep
You don't
on
make
saying
the
Woodway
obvious
Park.
choices. You don't make the obvious choices. Clear.
No. I didn't want the ordinary life. I keep on going away from my spiritual center, and my spiritual center is Woodway. It really is. It is those woods I know inside and out because I spent a lot of time in school in those woods.
I think woods were a big part of our growing up, obviously, more than maybe a lot of people, because we spent a lot of times in the woods, and there were also the woods held mysteries.
Yeah.
If
I mean,
you
it's
know what I
cheesy,
mean.
but my senior quote in high school was, "The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep and miles to go before I sleep." I know.
Nice.
It's a cheesy one, I wish it
love
would
that
be
poem.
some Pete Townsend quote or something, but it really reflected what I wanted to do. So I kept on going
Yeah.
further away. So, I left there and I went to University of Prep, then I went to Wazoo. So I went to one side of the state for college.
Yeah.
And then when I graduated, I went to the other side of the country and I worked at a newspaper in Pennsylvania. I just got in a car and drove.
You did? You just
and
didn't? Did you
landed
not
in-
know, or did you not know you were going to have a job there, or did you just get in the car and drive?
Well, to all the millennials out there was a publication, a magazine, a trade magazine. I know you don't know what that
don't know
is,
what that is, but it's okay.
called Editor and Publisher. And there was an advertisement for a reporter job at this newspaper, award-winning newspaper in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania.
Oh,
I've
that's
come full
interesting.
circle.
That is interesting, yeah.
Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania on I-80 in the middle of
Foreshadowing.
Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I drove across the country without a job promised, but an interview. Mm-hmm. So I arrived there, and there are about 250 people from around the country applying for 2 jobs. Wow. I'm like, oh, what have I done?
You drove there?
My little Honda, I drove there 6 days.
Oh, my God.
And my Honda Accord was full of all my belongings, my yearbooks, photos, whatever. And I arrived there, and I'm like, I was a sports reporter. I was the sports editor at the Daily Evergreen at Wazoo. I was...
you and I did the same thing. We drove across the country to a place we did not know anything about. I got in a car, in a Honda, got in Kevin Sherman's Honda. We moved to Chicago, and I had never been there before. Same thing. Yeah. I didn't have a job. I was trying to get a job. Yeah. Interesting.
Well, I got the job.
Wow.
Well,
they were probably like, shit, man, you just drove all the way across the country for this job. It must be important. You must be the guy.
Yeah, the other guys just I came from Williamsport, Pennsylvania for this job. I came from Seattle, Edmonds, Woodway.
I drove here from Woodway, Washington.
Yeah.
Wow.
I worked there a year, and but again, the wanderlust starts kicking in, and out of the blue, when the phone rings to the newsroom, I was just a general assignment reporter. I was doing school board meetings and obituaries every Friday night. That was my duty. I'd sit in the darkened newsroom, and the funeral home directors would call into the newsroom and tell me every Friday who died that week or whatever. So,
wow.
Yeah, and then they would read out to me, and I would transcribe the obituaries. And I remember thinking, and again, I'm not talking down to the people of the great state of Pennsylvania, but it's very rural and very, parochial. They stay at home kind of, and there was repeat after repeat of stories of, Jack Johnson, born in Berwick, Pennsylvania, died in Berwick, Pennsylvania. Probably didn't really leave, his back 40, his South 40. And that just wasn't me. And I remember feeling kind of, who's the It's a Wonderful Life, Jimmy Stewart's character.
Stewart.
He always hears the whistle of the train, but he's stuck.
Yeah.
But while his brother goes off and is a war hero and travels the world, and he's stuck at home, So out of the blue, when the phone rings to the newsroom, it rings to all the reporters. And one day, I just happened to be the guy that picked up that phone. And it was a guy who was up at the University of Pennsylvania at Bloomsburg. There was a university there. And he was setting up an exchange program with a university in Shenyang, China. Have you ever heard of Shenyang?
No. Tell me.
5-6 million people. It's one of the largest cities in China, up in the industrial northeast.
See, I'm going to pretend like I know nothing about China. I'm just pretending, just for our people in the audience, so they can, then I can ask questions about it, because I know everything about China. I'm giving you.
Ni hao.
Yeah, ni hao. I really am. I'm remiss in my Chinese studies, so anything you can inform me on is good.
Well, that's the thing. I thought I got a great education, but I knew nothing about China.
Yeah.
Nothing. I didn't even know how to say ni hao. I knew how to use chopsticks. That's about my extent of Chinese. And I knew there was a cultural revolution, and I knew in 1989 there was the Tiananmen Square incident.
Yeah.
But other than that, I didn't know much about China. So I get this call, and he's like, can you do a story on, we're doing this exchange program. We're going to bring a couple of grad students from China over here to teach for a year, and we're going to send recent graduates from this university to China. Long story short, I take down all the notes. I'm starting to think. I hang up, and my reporter, who is I don't know, she was probably 40, but to me, she looked and sounded about 80 at the time. Sue Brooke was sitting next to me, and I just turned to her and I said, would it sound strange if I said I want to go to China? And she didn't even look at me. I think she was annoyed at me. She just said, go. Go.
Just go. Was she smoking a cigarette?
I didn't even have a...
Just
go.
Yeah,
exactly. She sounded exactly like that in my memory.
Yeah.
Just go.
That's the voice of inspiration right there. Okay.
Yeah. So 3 weeks, literally 3 weeks later, I'm standing in Tiananmen Square. I'm in China. This is 1990, September 1990. I got off the plane. I packed a backpack full of what I thought were my necessities for a year in very cold. We're talking minus 30 degrees Celsius winters in Shenyang.
Whoa.
And then we boarded a 12-hour slow train up to Shenyang, and we got there September, and my bags were stolen.
Whoa. Just nothing. You had nothing.
I had everything that I was wearing. Plus a little carry-on bag that had my CDs and my Walkman.
What's that?
CD Walkman.
I wouldn't know what that is.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah. So at least I had my music.
Yeah, at least you had your music. That's so cool.
that there.
So
I keep on going to the extreme. I go
like
across
that,
America.
though.
I go to the other side of the world.
Sometimes I was just actually listening to something about the brain recently, and they were saying that you should, make different decisions, because if you keep making the same decisions that your brain tells you to make, your life's gonna be the same all the time. Sometimes you got to take a left when your body is telling you to take a right, because then something new will happen. Otherwise, You're having the same thoughts over and over again. You're having the same experiences over again. You got to change it up. I want to show this picture of you.
Okay.
When you arrived there. Was this when you arrived? Right?
That's actually a year after I arrived in China. This is when I arrived in Hong Kong. So after 1 year in China, shell-shocked.
Yeah.
You literally shell-shocked. You can see I arrived in Hong Kong, and that's, my God, I look 10.
You do. You look 10 years old.
I look 10 years old. But I've been out here ever since, so from 24 to 54. And that picture was taken, if I remember correctly, was at the Ascension House
Youth hostel?
Youth hostel. It was a Christian Lutheran hospital. Yeah. Talk about therapy. I mean, I was not religious at all.
Really?
But I heard about this youth hostel up on the hill, up in the New Territories, not far from where I'm living here now. There was a bunch of backpackers. We used to have to sing a song before every meal.
No.
And
what was it?
Thank you, Lord, for giving us food, and multiple verses. And again, I'm not denigrating
the religion,
a Christian life, but religion. But Yeah, that was at Ascension House.
Well, that's your experience. You were saying this, like denigrating Woodway High School or denigrating, different things, the religion or Pennsylvania. But you're having your own unique experience, and you got to make your choices for yourself, and obviously you have, as you go along. So nothing to be ashamed of at all.
No, no.
So
I've lived a pretty good life.
yeah. So
Very
okay.
lucky.
So did you when you were in college? Did you major in journalism, or did you kind of just come across it because of this? Going to Pennsylvania and starting to work for the news.
No, I majored. I majored in journalism. I majored in broadcast journalism of all things. And
So you
and
kinda
again,
knew
I
where you were
wasn't
going.
very. No, I not really. I mean, I never wanted to be the broadcast journalist. I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't really like.
You didn't want to be on
I
camera?
was curious.
Did you want to be on camera?
Well, I didn't start on camera. I started in print because
Mm-hmm.
the fundamentals of journalism is the ability to write. You have to write well, and you have to have a steady and cohesive narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And so writing is the key to everything. And I didn't want to talk in sound bites and do the puker voice and all that. I never really wanted to be on camera, but it kind of evolved. When I was working at CNBC, I was a producer, and one day they threw me on camera and they said, "Oh, you can kind of do this." I was like, "Well, I guess I can. I mean, I'm not dumb."
So is it
I kind
hard
of fumbled into broadcasting after a long career.
Are there a lot of people that want to be on camera? Want to be on camera journalists?
Everyone wants to be on camera.
So if you were like not really wanting to be on camera, how did you end up on camera?
God, this is going to sound arrogant. Just by being competent. Mm-hmm. I'm not flashy. I mean, I've had a long career and I've won awards and I've done some stuff that I'm very proud of. But I think I'm most proud of the fact that I'm actually not that well known. Mm-hmm. I am in Asia, probably much more so. I mean, you're on TV for 30 years, you kind of get known. But it's 18 years at Bloomberg Television now. And I was the China correspondent for 7 of those.
I'm going to flash on some things here because I want
so this is Aung San Suu Kyi. She's the Nobel Prize winner, Peace Prize winner from 1992. The champion of democracy. She was the daughter of the national hero, General Aung San, who defeated the Japanese in World War II. And she's called the lady, the dear lady. She's so revered in Burma / Myanmar. And again, this was I knocked on her door. She was under house arrest by the ruling generals because of her party, the National League for Democracy, won elections, democratically elected, but then they revoked the results of they rescinded the results of the election and threw her under house arrest, and she won the Nobel Peace Prize in '92. They opened up a brief window of her house arrest around 1996 when this was taken. And I went to her door and they said, "Come back tomorrow." And I spent an hour with her in her home, her father's home. And it was probably one of the most significant interviews I've ever done because, again, I'm getting serious here. We need like a hippo eating a watermelon.
Sure
I saw one of your past.
I'm sure we could get that.
Okay.
We totally.
If we need some levity, can you just show the hippo?
We'll have it. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Of course. I love it though.
Long story short, I spent an hour with her and she was rude to me and she was
really,
she was just not nice. And I had read her book, Freedom from Fear, and just the ideology or the idealistic soul in me was, kind of revered her. Mm-hmm. She's beautiful. She's a freedom fighter. She hadn't seen her sons and her English Oxford University professor husband in years because of her principles. If she ever left the country, she would never be allowed back in. She's just a respected person. So I spent an hour with her and I had a list of questions. I went through those questions, 11 questions in about 5 minutes. And I'm like, what do I do? Because she didn't like any of my questions.
Well, don't you think you learned that what did it teach you? Tell me.
It taught me never to have preconceived ideas about people. Yeah. And I expected her to be sympathetic and we would talk as simpaticos and this and that. I was wrong. She saw me as an outsider coming in. She had much more to lose by this interview than I did. And the slork which was the State Law and Order Restoration Council, the governing generals, which I love that name, the SLORC. You couldn't make that up. The SLORC. They could use anything she said. If they saw any weakness, anything, they could use that against her. And I didn't realize this until later. You know, what I thought was an arrogance and kind of an aggressiveness was actually, you know, it was life and death for her. Yeah. And I was too young. I look about 12 again. I was 30 here in this picture.
That's you there, huh?
Or just short of, that's me, yeah. Because she hated the microphone. She took it off her traditional.
So you had to hold yours out there.
And she threw it down, so I had to hold it up like this.
That's great. Yeah, I see her.
And
her,
so
holding it there.
Anyway. Yeah. So that's cool. It taught me how to be a better journalist that hour, I hope. And later, she warmed up to me, and we had a nice conversation.
You know, don't you learn also when you interview people that you can have preconceived notions about them or questions that maybe you think you want to ask, but when the interview starts, it's really about just listening to them.
It's about listening. It really is. And my style is more, I do preparation. You know what Russell Wilson of the Seahawks says, preparation leads to separation or whatever. But there's a lot of truth to that. Prepare. And go into it with an open mind and listen to what that person has to say. Don't try to fill in the blanks of what you want her to say or he to say. Listen. And I don't have lists of questions. I have topics that I go explore. And if he or she is not answering, I back around again later. But allow them to speak. You know, I have a really hard time with U.S. television and news outfits. Really hard time. It's just about who can shout the loudest and who can have the most bellicose voice and the most strident position on things. It's really done a huge disservice to America and the discourse of politics and everything. I don't care if someone's a Democrat or Republican, left, right, liberal, conservative. I don't care. We need to have a civil conversation. And so cue the watermelon eating hippo, please.
I could maybe have a picture.
I'm getting too serious.
I could have a picture of JP Patches, maybe. That would be.
Oh, JP Patches. That's a great segue.
There's JP Patches and Gertrude there for people that are getting a little too serious. What did you...
so does everybody know who JP Patches is?
People who watch this show a lot know who JP Patches is. Did you know JP Patches?
I love JP Patches.
Were you a Patches pal?
Yeah, my mom was a photographer, so she took me up to Stewart Drugs. I got a photo sitting on JP Patches' lap in front of Stewart Drugs. And what I liked about JP Patches, I'm sorry, this is sacrilege, but I hated Mr. Rogers because he kind of talked down to kids. And, you know, in a patronizing voice, and it was just like too namby-pamby or whatever. But, you know, these guys, Gertrude and then Boris S. Wart, you know, they were ahead of their times.
Yeah. Because
the double entendres and they didn't talk down to kids.
I always say that they were inspiring, inspiring to us. I felt the same way. Yeah. My mom will tell you, too, that Mr. Rogers, although I had the Daniel Tiger puppet and stuff, I was not a huge fan of him when I was a little kid. But I was much bigger fan of JP Patches. And
JP Patches and Speed Racer.
Yeah, Speed Racer. Yeah, totally. This is what we grew up on. These were our inspirations. And, you know, I think it had a lot of impact on our generation. Definitely. Another serious thing. But anyway, I want to go through a few more of these photos of yours because they're super interesting. Who's this guy up here above me?
That's the younger self of me. That's in Bagan, the ancestral temple city up in northern Burma. And that's in front of Aung San Suu Kyi's house with a photographer that I just met on the airplane, Adrian Beard. We've not crossed paths in a long time, but you know, that photo is kind of the Southeast Asian journalist backpacking through Asia and doing interesting things. That was in 1996. So
wow.
Yeah.
And so
anyway.
There you are with the Jackson.
That's the
5.
Jackson 5. Well, the Jackson 4.
Jackson 4. Michael's not there, huh?
Yeah.
So
cool. It's not all just business and finance at Bloomberg.
There's some pictures in here of you like with Joe Montana playing.
I think I'm the only person in the world who can say this.
Let me find that.
I threw football. That was Jamie Dimon.
Look at all these pictures.
There's Jack Ma
This
of
is you,
Alibaba.
like, oh my God.
Just
I'm scrolling through
that's
just to
Carlos
find.
Ghosn.
Oh my
That's
God.
John Huntsman, the ambassador of China who ran for president.
I just whipped through
You
all these
know,
pictures. People are going to be like, why did you whip
that's
through those
okay.
pictures?
That's okay. I don't need to talk. Oh, that's Donald Trump.
That's Donald Trump. So, okay, so tell
He
me how
passed
it,
me and wait.
what? Did he throw a football to you? No, he's waving.
No, that was in Tokyo. No, I think I'm the only person who's ever thrown the football with Joe Montana on the Great Wall of China. I mean, it's
Wow. So tell me, how does it work with you and Bloomberg? Do you when there's American things happening in China, do you handle them, or do you handle just all the news for English speaking people, or how's it work?
yeah. I mean, when I was the China correspondent, I would cover just about anything that was relevant to our audience in China. I mean, I was one guy covering China, really. I was the first Bloomberg television correspondent for China, and I had to give it up in about 2014. I just
You had enough. You couldn't.
I'd had enough, and I thought it was time for a younger. Anyway, I can't really talk about Bloomberg.
Yeah.
You know, we have to put the disclaimer on there. You know, this is not about Bloomberg. It's been the best company I've ever worked for, to be honest. And I'm not just saying that. But you know, I had a great 7 years as the China correspondent. It was look, China. When I went to China in 1990, it was about a $350 billion economy.
Mm-hmm.
In 2020, it's $15 trillion.
Wow.
You know, my life has been very fortunate to be, you know, I was born in 1966, and that was the year Mao Zedong launched the Cultural Revolution, a drastic, damaging chapter of Chinese history. And they really threw China into darkness for 10 years until Mao died in 1976. So I was born the year, you know, one of the depths, the nadirs of Chinese history, to where it is now, the world's second largest economy. And the change I've seen is just unbelievable. And I'm if there's any therapy here, it's just how fortunate I've been. Mm-hmm. I lucked out. I moved that phone call I got, and I went to China when I was 24 years old. No one could have predicted what we've been seeing now. And and with that size, though, it comes a lot of friction as well with the United States right now, and that's what consumes a lot of my reporting now. Mm-hmm. It's trying to break down the noise. I'm not up there shouting down China. I'm not out there shouting down America. I'm trying to break down the noise and bridge an understanding. Mm-hmm. I'm not taking sides. And I go back to American reporting. You know, back in the late 80s, Ronald Reagan did away with the fairness doctrine, which had been in place since the mid 40s. And that's what broadcasters back then were required. Sounds so nostalgic, but they were required to, present issues that were pertinent, and controversial issues were pertinent to the American public, and present them in fair, balanced, and equitable ways. And that was law, fairness doctrine. Well, Reagan and the Republicans at the time did away with it, and subsequent White Houses have not revived it. And that created Rush Limbaugh. That created other kinds of media that is just one-sided opinion TV. And I think it's done huge disservice.
Huge
It's
damage.
Propaganda.
Do you think that,
You know,
I know, I agree. And also you get into like kind of a funnel of just, and it seems like once a news channel has kind of picked a side these days, they have to just kind of stay on that, and they can't say anything that would piss anybody off who's viewing it, because they're just trying to sell commercials. And so as a result, you get a very, very narrow view, and you don't get a lot of conversation. Like just recently, my wife and I have been working to get the Equal Rights Amendment ratified for a number of years now. And it got ratified in all the states, and it's about to, it should be put in the Constitution. But they're not doing it. And Trump's people didn't do it. Biden's people didn't do it. And so, I posted something on Facebook the other day saying, well, when's Biden going to do this thing? And it's like, people are like, whoa, we can't go, if you're a Democrat, you can't be criticizing the Democratic president. Yeah, you can. I mean, that's kind of our job. As citizens, our job is to say, hey, this is important to me,
If you're a Trump supporter, it's okay. I don't care what your politics are. Or if you're a Biden supporter, I don't care. It's okay. We as a nation have the right to form our beliefs and to be able to, have freedom of speech and this and that. But don't just take one, platform, lock, stock, and barrel, and believe everything. And anything anybody else says is wrong. My philosophy as a reporter has to be fairness, and at least I have my personal biases. I try not to bring them into reporting, obviously.
Yeah.
What I try to do first and foremost is to at least, maybe I don't agree, but at least try to understand a contrarian viewpoint to my own.
Mm-hmm.
Understand, and you have to understand the other side. And I'm getting a little heated up because I can't stand this polarization in America. Biden's the enemy or Trump's the enemy or this. No. Yeah. You guys got it all wrong. And you're saying the other guy is what's causing all this. No, your myopia is causing this. Mm-hmm. Whatever side of the political spectrum you're on. And and I see it from a global perspective. I will never, say that one party rule is the cure-all for everything. Mm-hmm. But you know what? They are laser focused, China, laser focused. And we have lost our strategic advantage because we're so divided politically.
Divide and conquer.
And
yeah.
And the enemy is not the Democrat. The enemy is not the Republican. And I'm not saying China's the enemy. Don't misquote me here. No. I'm saying we have lost our strategic goals. Focus. And we need to be smart about, the competitors out there. Mm-hmm. Sorry. Cue hippo.
Get the hippo. I should have had more hippos at the ready. I had no idea it was going to be so serious.
I did bring a watermelon.
Thank you. A watermelon always lightens up a situation, especially a tiny little watermelon like that. The thing, by the same token, I just want to say, sometimes though, when you're like, the idea of fair and balanced or whatever is to bring on two screaming talking heads that scream at each other, and that doesn't help either. That's not fair and balanced. That just is people screaming at each other. And I think sometimes we get into this whole mentality that is closer to the Maury Povich show than it is to our, news.
Well, that was something that Jon Stewart brought up a lot, and and I've seen it at various networks, and I'm not going to name them because they're competitors and this and that. But you basically, on a talk show, you have someone on the left and someone on the right, and for an hour they just scream at each other. Okay, yeah. It doesn't matter if they come to any understanding or agreement or anything. It just, you're the guy from the left and you're the guy from the right, and you just go at it.
Yeah.
And Jon Stewart came on the Tucker Carlson show, and and Tucker Carlson kind of said, I thought you were going to be funny. And he goes, no, I'm not going to be your monkey. And I thought it was
right.
just spot on.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be your monkey. And I'm sure as heck not going to be anyone's monkey on TV. Because keep it straight, keep it factual, and let the viewers decide. So
I love that.
Sorry, I'm old-fashioned.
Well, we're running out of time. Unfortunately, I whipped through all of the slides that I had for you, but this has been really interesting and really great connecting with you. Maybe we'll have to, continue this on another episode of Lunch Therapy sometime soon, but I really appreciate you taking the time in what I'm sure is a very busy life over there. In the middle of a typhoon, nonetheless.
It's raining pretty hard right now.
Look at I've been watching the window behind you, and every once in a while it'll just totally whip up, and then it goes still. Like right now it looks a little still, but maybe it's just coming down, huh? It's cool. Yeah,
well, I kind of got myself whipped up there at the end. I apologize.
I like that. I like it. This is, what this is for. This is for, mainly interviews on Lunch Therapy are about inspiring others to do what they want to do, and also starting conversations, because people communicate about. That's the only way that we can get anything solved, is from talking with one another, not yelling at each other, not
having compassion,
separate channels. We got to talk with one another, and we need to encourage people to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen enough divisiveness. I've seen enough angry people. I've covered all kinds of different stories, and the situation in Hong Kong right now is polarizing too, with the protests.
Yeah.
And the subsequent clampdown on the mini constitution here. And you've probably, I won't get into it because I've covered it quite extensively for Bloomberg. So, and I don't have an opinion on it, but I've seen enough divisiveness as a reporter over all these years, and it's just this sounds so high and mighty, but it's so bad for our planet and for our.
It is bad for our planet. Have
for
you
humanity.
ever found yourself in situations as a reporter being in danger? Is that a common thing, or for you?
I wouldn't say a common thing. Yeah, I've faced issues. I've been beaten. I've been with broom handles.
Really?
Yeah, I can't talk about it. That goes back into the lower right quadrant. And someday I'll have my rectifications.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't want to leave on a bummer note.
Well, tell me about you have a wife and a child. Am I right?
It's my therapy watermelon.
Yeah. Tell me about your family just before we leave here. Just to leave it.
My wife is wonderful. Jessica. She is working at Disney Plus, or doing content. She's a television producer, doing great, marvelous stuff.
That's cool.
Worked at HBO for a while, and has been a movie producer in China. She put me in one of her movies in China.
Really?
I played this bit role in this Chinese comedy where I was the American boyfriend of some woman, and I had to speak some bad levels of Chinese.
I wish we had a clip of that.
Oh, yeah, I buried that one too. That's over in this lower left quadrant.
There's a lot of secrets in there, hidden back there.
I have a lot of compartments. So, and my daughter is wonderful. She's my shining light. 13 years old. And she's great. So
that's beautiful.
I've been blessed. A great life.
All right. Well, I'm going to leave
great
it
to
on
hook
that.
up again with you, Joel.
Yeah, it's so great hooking up with you. Maybe at some point we will run into each other in the real world, or we'll have a powwow in the real world, and bring the watermelon. You bring the watermelon, I'll bring the hippo.
There you go.
All right, so there you go. There it is. Steve Engle on lunch therapy. Wow, that's a really interesting life. Just go. Just go. That's my favorite part. The lady said that. Charlie is still sleeping in the same spot, so what can we say about Charlie? I don't know. We can't say enough good things about Steve Engle and about Charlie. And let's check the chat room here, just before we go into our dance break. Joel, don't you speak Chinese? I wish I spoke Chinese. I obviously don't know enough about China, but I now have the hookup. Is she having pull with casting? Of course. We're getting me some casting, which is very helpful. Thanks, Howard, for being here. Karen Mork, so great to see you. Yeah, that was really interesting, Steve. And thanks for being here, Steve. I don't know. I guess it's 4 o'clock in the morning. You're probably starting your day out there in Hong Kong. Yeah, fascinating point of view, really unique. And I love the ways you just took the other path. I mean, talk about the road not taken, taking the different path from maybe what the obvious path was, and the results are just extraordinary. So now we're gonna dance it out. We're gonna. I might have some hippos. I might have some hippos eating watermelons. Thanks, Steve. That's a huge compliment from you, because you are the master interviewer. Yeah. All right, let's get into the dance break. Dance them if you got them. Of course, I'm not talking. I've been talking. I shouldn't talk during the music anyway. These are the Running Mates, one of my favorite bands out there. They're not running for office. They are running for great music. Thanks, Steve, for joining us here today, all the way from Hong Kong. Thanks to everybody in the chat room. Really appreciate it. Karen Mork, Tina Adams, Kamala, Guignel, Howard. Send this around to some Woodway people too. Matt Wright. Speaking of Woodway people. Okay, now I'm shutting up. Yes.
Who are we mistaken? But you see, it's not me, it's not my family. In your head, they are fighting with their tanks and their bombs and their bombs and their guns. In your head, they are crying. In your head, zombie, zombie, zombie. What's in your head?
All right, everybody. On Tuesday, gonna have the funny guy on with me, and we're going to be talking about the Mandela Effect. So there's going to be some interesting comedy and some ridiculous insights, and maybe there will be some hippos eating watermelons. I don't know. Maybe. We can only hope. Maybe there'll be guys dancing around like that. I don't know. We'll see y'all next week on Lunch Therapy. Thank you, Canel. I don't know whether you're serious or not. Anyway, thanks for Lunch Therapy. This has been Interview Friday with Steve Engle.